I think it's a shame what happened to Tucker. He had the #1 show. He was doing great. His show's very interesting. And he was out there in the sense that he was telling the truth. To me, the other ones are out there because they're lying and they're hiding and they're afraid to talk.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, Fox would not have had any award. The first thing they needed is a new law firm. But if you think about it, it's a platform. People go and they talk about the platform, whether it's elections or anything else. And they say the election was good, the election was bad. Everybody talks. They basically said the person holding the platform is liable. This was the craziest case I've ever heard. And to pay almost $800 million, and they have other cases coming.
Well, to a company that's tiny, right? I mean, if there's liability and you do damage, it's based on what the company is actually worth. This seems like it's worth multiple times what the company could ever possibly be worth, and yet they were willing to pay it. And it seems like that was designed to probably prevent, a Rupert from having to testify or something like that, but it doesn't seem like a fiduciary responsible decision.
I don't know how they could have lost the case if they had lawyers that would have talked about free speech, and had lawyers that would have talked about platforms. It's a news platform. That means every time somebody goes on the news, if they say something and if it's wrong, CBS or NBC fake news or ABC fake news, any of these groups or outlets or platforms are going to be responsible for whatever's said. It's ridiculous. You won't have any news there, but they ought to close up their news shows right now. So I think losing Tucker, having Tucker not be there, is going to have a big impact and a very negative impact on Fox, yes. You mentioned about the tapes on January 6th. Well, there's something went on, and it'll be interesting because I think Tucker probably now is in a position where he can say what happened, but he was all gung-ho about it. This was going to be running for a long time because he had a lot of tape, and all of a sudden it was just sort of shut down, never to be spoken of again. And I think that was a hard period for Tucker, to be honest with you.
Well, listen, I think he did an incredible service to those people, but the fact that it took that long in our government just shows just the unequal justice under the law. But
they don't want those tapes exposed, meaning the Marxists, the communists, the radical left. They don't want them exposed.
Talk about your relationship with Rush Limbaugh. There's some incredible letter from Rush. You gave him the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Amongst our people, he would have been a Tucker type character, right? A once in a generation type character, thought leader, etc. You had a really interesting relationship with him, and probably one that maybe many wouldn't have ever thought would have emerged the way it did, given sort of your apolitical nature prior to this.
So Rush was special. I didn't know Rush at all. I heard of Rush and I saw Rush on television, but I never met him. And when I made the announcement in 2015 that I was running for president, I made it at the base of the escalator in a building that you know very well, right? Trump Tower, and came down with Melania and the kids. Or the kids, we'll always say kids because when they're the kids, they're the kids, but even if they're a little older than you would think of. But when the family was there and Melania was there, everybody was there, and I made a speech. I didn't have speechwriters or anything, but I talked about the wall, I talked about the rape that takes place, I talked about everything. And
all
it
accurate
got
and
great
now worse.
Reviews until about 2 or 3 days later when they said, did he say rape? Well, it turned out that the word rape, as used by me, was peanuts compared to what happens, because the women coming up in those caravans, it's a travesty what's going on. The raping and the pillage, and it's horrible. And pouring into our country at levels never seen before. Millions and millions of people. I think by the end of this year, you'll have, the real number will be close to 15 million people, not 4 or 5 million people as they're projecting. I think close to 15 million people. Right now, they're waiting outside because of our medical exemption. They're waiting outside in the hundreds of thousands to pour into our country as soon as the time expires, which is going to be in another couple of weeks. Hundreds of thousands of people are going to pour into our country at one time. We have no idea where they came from. We have no idea if they're sick, if they're well. We have no idea, did they come out of the prisons? Did they come out of the mental institutions? What they're doing to our country is unthinkable.